Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another first day of the week on the Pan-African Daily TV. Tonight you're watching Chief Montana from the Ancestral Renewal and Communication. Yes, who is Chief Montana? You're going to be knowing or discovering and learning a lot about tonight. It's been a couple of 3 days. We miss each other, and our last show was Friday with Reverend Phillips Matthews on a very sensitive and hectic topic. Of course, immediately after that conversation, what happened was Facebook unjustly unpublished our page. Because when I say unjustly, no reasons given or accounted for, and we only can say because of that conversation, too much knowledge and power that was put out there, it was very, very inconvenient or uncomfortable. Tonight, we are here again to start the official launching of our ancestral reconciliation between Africa and its diaspora. And as all we know, for the past 400 plus years, there has never been a significant reconciliation process in which we have come together, Africans on the continent and its diaspora, to say now we are one and we want to build the Africa that we want, motherland. Doesn't matter whether you're in the diaspora or on the continent, Mother Africa is calling its children home. So the summit is going to take place on the 12th, Saturday, the 12th of December. We had been talking about it. And one of the prominent guest speakers of this summit is Chief Montana, who is sitting right here with us in the studio. And we are opening this first session of this week on the topic, the difference between religion and spirituality. And what is it that is so relevant for us Africans to know, to be able to get liberated? We all know that we had been under some kind of scam. We had been, I don't know, our minds had been stolen. We learned even from from Reverend Phillips Matthews, who said, there is nothing wrong with us Africans. We have just been misled, or we have been fooled for so long. But right now, our ancestors are uniting us together because the 400 years is over, and we're about to reconnect to our ancestors. And so, for this reason, we must do a symbolic gesture. Not just coming here every day and discussing, but actually getting on together this day, to unite ourselves, to connect ourselves, to do some kind of libations and to connect to them through our drumming, through our music. And we're going to learn about a lot. What is it that we should take into 2021? So, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to this wonderful week. So from today up to Saturday, we're going to be getting speakers only on this focus on how we can impact our lives as African people by going back to just our spirituality. Who are we? Where do we come from? What are we made of? What is your DNA? I mean, which gods are we worshiping? I mean, we don't believe that God is global. He wouldn't have made us different. If he's different, so different nations have their own God. Of course, but we know that there's one most high, the creator of the universe and all other gods that isn't it. But who are we as African? That is what we want to learn tonight as we officially start this summit that is going to be on the 12th of December, starting 2 p.m. Europe until midnight, with lots of guest speakers. We'll be showing you an image video on this summit coming up soon. But before we get to that, let's welcome our guest for today. Chief Montana, good evening and welcome to the Pan-African Daily TV.
Good evening. How are you doing today?
As you can see, I'm doing very, very fine.
Yes.
Very, very fine. I'm so excited that I have you here. I've followed you up. I've watched you on your performances. Even the global drumming session that you did was enormous. It was just explosive. I've never seen something like that. People connecting from all over the globe, to share this gift of ours. And we want to know more about Chief Montana and his engagement and how he became renewed. What is it that we should know? So over to you.
Well, we don't have enough time to tell the entire story, so I'll give the Cliff Notes version. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am Chief Montana. Um, I practice in a tradition that's in northern Ghana with the Gomber people. And the name of the tradition is Kali, and Kali just means tradition. That's all it means. It means nothing more, nothing less than that. I have been practicing for at least the past 6 years or so, roughly. And I currently teach classes online for people throughout the diaspora. And actually, now there are people on the continent of Africa who begin to take my classes on how to reconnect with your ancestors, how to begin the process of reconnecting to the tradition that our ancestors practiced in the beginning.
Hmm.
And it's very important that we do that because we have unfortunately been disconnected. We've actually forgotten. We're suffering from amnesia, whether it's forced amnesia or we did it intentionally. Nevertheless, it's still amnesia, and we've actually forgotten actually who we are. And it's interesting that other people around the world know who we are, but we have no clue at all.
Exactly.
Yes. So let me see. What else can I tell you about me? Um,
Where are you born? Are you originally from Ghana? What are your ancestral traits? Where are you living right now and how?
okay, I'm originally from the U.S. I'm originally from West Palm Beach, Florida. Those of you from the U.S., you know it's one of the best states in the U.S. because it's warm pretty much year round. So that's what makes it so great. Um, so I was born there. I was raised in the U.S. The interesting thing is, from the time I can remember, I never felt like I belonged in the
Mhm.
U.S. I always felt like a stranger. That's how I just always felt. And when I was a kid, I can remember maybe around 6 years old, I saw my first documentary on, I don't know what station it was, but it was on some type of African tribe or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but when I heard the drumming, I just jumped up, and it just, my heart just felt really clean and really pure, and it just started to move me, and it felt like home. That's the best way I can describe it. That's how it felt. And so ever since I was 6, I've always been attracted to pretty much anything African for the most part, and it's always felt very familiar to me, like it was home. And then as an adult, I just had this yearning and this zest to travel to the continent of Africa. I had no clue where I would travel at all. However, I ended up landing in Ghana, and from there, I traveled to the northern regions of Ghana and just reconnected. And Ghanaians are some of the warmest people on the continent. Nothing against anyone else, but they're just some of those warm, inviting people on the continent that I've come across. And they accepted me like I was like a long lost brother or cousin or son or something like that. And so, from there, I began my practice. And the elders, they were just more than willing to teach and to allow me to learn. And the beautiful thing is they allowed me to make mistakes. So they allowed me to make mistakes, and there was never any judgment or anything like that. And now here I am today. So that's pretty much the story.
Wow. I mean, just being called and from that tender age. Was there a time in your life that you ever regretted making this choice?
Oh no, never, never ever. That I never regretted it. The moment I stepped foot on the continent, it was, for me, it was home, and it
Mhm.
didn't, it felt like everything was familiar, and it felt like I just left and I was just coming back home from vacation. Like that's how it really felt, really. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, today we want to talk about a little bit about the difference between religion and spirituality. I mean, you must have made this experience and to start saying this is the way for African people. Like you just said, every other person knows who they are, know who their God is, nowhere they're going to accept us. Why?
Well, the short answer is because of the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, that's really the short answer. However, what we have to understand is that we have forgotten who we are, and it didn't happen overnight at all. It took years, it took decades, it took centuries for us to forget, who we are. And the beautiful thing is that many of us have come back. We're all ancestors, but we happen to be ancestors in this current form. And we have come back to bring and to usher the African back to his prominent place in the world. Like that's why we're back. We're back to reunite, to come back together, because we've been separated for far too long. And it's a calling, and you can see it all around the world. And it's something that is happening, and it's like a runaway train. It is not going to stop at all, because the momentum has actually started. So we're moving, and each day that passes, we move faster and faster, and we move closer and closer and closer to reuniting as a family. And so it's a beautiful thing that's happening in the world.
Absolute. Um, it is the speed of light is so extreme. I begin to like, it's like the catch up from the 400 years, but most people are still saying that we definitely would begin to leave some people behind, some that is still hang out and still think that their ancestors is called someone or looks at a different differently from them as another color, and he's the one that would even liberate them, even with the opportunities and the chances that they have on the continent. So the role of religion has actually been one of the core uh, causes of what I think it has kept us so long for us to wake up. Because it's
Mhm.
not only like, if I imagine, like if they only had took us and then leave us, without imposing, a God that would free us, maybe we would have. But after that, now we're the ones even facilitating the process of initiating our own into the very, and it's taken longer. When are we going to realize that?
Well, so we're gonna realize it, and it's very easy, and it's gonna happen quickly. That's the beautiful thing about it. We will realize it when at least 30% of the people realize it and wake up. And it's
Mhm.
called, like I term it like a tipping point. Once you reach that tipping point, once about 30% of the people understand and begin to remember and realize who we are, and it will literally impact the remaining people, the remaining 70% or so of the people. It will impact them. It's no different than anything else that happens around the world. If you look at advertisements, if you look at if someone wants to change, the social structure, change the way that we think, all that their target is to get at least 30% of the people to get on board. And it's
Mhm.
something magical that happens. Automatically, the other 70% or so begin to get on board without asking them to get on board. And so that's all we need is really a small number, which is about 30% of the people. And we have to understand that, religion has really twisted our worlds upside down. And we have to first understand how intentional it was. Because I know here um, in North America and throughout the Caribbean and in South America, there were, I can't remember the guy's name, but there was actually an article that was written monthly, and it was titled, How to Christianize Your Slaves.
Hmm.
And it was in and slave owners would read this article and they would actually follow it. They would follow the principles in that particular article.
Mhm.
And we have to understand that these things were done intentionally. We have to also understand that our ancestors who were taken, they weren't adults like you and I. If
Mhm.
you if you have children and you look at your children, they were only between 12 and 14 years old. They were babies who were taken. So they're easy. It's easier to manipulate a child than it is for an adult. If someone grabbed me, if someone grabbed you and said, I'm going to take you into slavery, we're going to fight every day because we understand what it is to be free. We have a clear understanding of that, not to be in captivity. But when someone is young, it's easier to mold their minds and actually have them to do as you command them to do. So,
I mean, that's one aspect that you're talking here that we never had thought about it, because when we say our ancestors and we just see, all right, grandparents, the word ancestors make us not even see kids or young people in that category. But what you're saying is like, if we remember the ages and if we look at how they selected them, what kind of categories they wanted, from which country, how should they be, and even when they took them on the ships and started marketing them as cargos, they had to fashion them like Kunta Kinte, oil, eat, and to make the product look like, oh God. Each time you think about it, yes, that is the reason why we're thinking that all this, we need a healing and we need a kind of a reconciliation to just pay ourselves that respect that now we are one. How do you see the essence of this summit coming up on Saturday? How important is it to us?
This summit is extremely important because there's nothing like it that's happened. It's time that we come to the table, and what we're going to understand is that we are a lot more alike than we think we are. We have a lot more in common than we think we are, than we think we do. We really do. And I saw that very clearly the first time I went to Ghana. It was as clear as day. And I always look for the small things. I don't look for like the things that are glaring to see the commonalities. I look for the very small things. In language, I look at how we talk and how we express ourselves in language. It is so similar. Just like throughout the diaspora, it's the same way on the continent. When we want to put emphasis on something, we repeat the word. We'll say small, small. We do the same thing throughout. We'll say like for real, for real. Or if someone has passed away and you want to let them know that this person is really dead, we'll say, oh, no. They're like dead. Like they're not coming back like that. So we'll do those things. And I've noticed, and there's some other things also that I've noticed, but that's like the thing that was really glaring, how like there's so many things that we have in common throughout the diaspora. So when we come together, we're going to realize that we have a lot more in common, and there's a lot more that we've actually held on to from a traditional perspective than we think. And we'll see the beauty in all of that. And it's going to be easy for us to come together because we just have to understand and be clear about what actually happened. And once we understand what actually happened, then it's easy. We can't run around and blame, continental Africans on, now the thing is like we're blaming continental Africans for enslaving our ancestors, for selling them into slavery. But if you really look at it, there was only it happened, but there's only a handful of people. You can probably count them on two hands. It wasn't like everyone was doing it across the entire continent or Western Africa. It did not happen that way at all. But we have to realize that, and we have to be willing to forgive. We have to be willing to come together and be present and see what can we do today moving forward, and not be overly concerned about yesterday. Use yesterday as a reference for yesterday never to happen again, but don't use yesterday as your future. You'll never win that way.
Okay. You chose Ghana, but it's just not like you are in Accra or Kumasi or you are down there. Was that intentional? Why did we, a lot of people, when they want to go back to Africa, they actually don't choose the village. When I saw where you went and the places you've been to, what was it so special about it? You just said, or you just realized that you're supposed to go there. I'm going out here going to the continent and accessing the village?
You were breaking up just a little bit, but I think you were asking me why did I choose Ghana, I think. You were breaking up.
The village in Ghana, because you're not in the towns, you're not in one city or the other. You're really that village.
You're breaking up just a little bit. I don't know if it's my connection, but I can't understand what you're saying because it's really choppy.
Okay. Wow. You hear me?
Yes, I can now. Yes.
Right. I was asking when I saw your works, those that you are not in the city, in the townships in Ghana, but you are in the village. Did you choose that, or you realize where you need to get the connection or to know Africa in the village?
Immediately when he started talking, it started breaking up again, and I can kind of understand what you're saying, but I'm not clear. You're mentioning something about being in the villages in the north. You mentioned something about the townships in central and southern Ghana, like Kumasi and Accra, but I'm not clear what the question was.
Like, did you intentionally go to the village to live there, or you should have lived, or you could have chosen to be in the townships? Why the village?
Oh, okay, got you. Well, it's the village because I'm going to tell you how I got to the village. I'm going to tell you why I ended up in the village. I got to the village. I actually went with a friend of mine. Actually, this guy I was studying with, he had connections in Ghana, so I went to Ghana with him. So that's how I got there. But once I arrived in northern Ghana and I began to move around, I remembered something that my mentor asked me when I was around 25 or so. And I didn't know what I was saying at the time, but I understand it now. He asked me, what was what was one of my goals, one of my greatest goals, was one of the things I really wanted to accomplish in my life. And I told him, I said, I want to go to Africa. I said, I have no clue where. And I said, I want to spend 6 months to a year in the village and just live and learn. And, just to see myself. That's another way to put that. And I didn't realize until years later when I ended up there that I actually declared that in my 20s. And I totally forgot about that completely. And so I actually, it actually manifested itself based upon my declaration. That's how I ended up there. Nevertheless, I went there with a guy who introduced me to his elders there and the people who he knew there. So that's how I ended up there.
Right, but did you see any need? Do you know the difference being in the township in Africa and in the village?
Yes, yes,
What?
definitely. So, being in the townships, people are a little more colonized in the townships. Like that's the main difference I noticed. I noticed primarily in the townships, you don't find people practicing tradition openly. But when you go into the villages, people are open with it. They have nothing going on with traditional practices at all. And so that was the major difference that I noticed. It's just how people moved in the larger cities or in the townships. It's different than how people move, because people in the townships, especially I could say, especially in Ghana, they are actually more Christian than anything else. There's a large Muslim population there, definitely, but they're a lot more Christian, throughout the township, especially in the south and central regions of Ghana. In the north, there are more Muslims in the north, but I've noticed in the south, and I noticed also the interesting thing is that people from the south would actually sneak up to the north to get spiritual work done. It happens when I'm there. I see it all the time, and this may shock a lot of people. However, there are a lot of pastors of churches that journey up to the north in the wee hours of the morning to have spiritual work done, to assist them with various things that they're dealing with. Yep, and it happens all the time.
Wow. Okay. Wait. Hold it there. I- it's like the first time, but it's usual that we have religious pastors of the churches go down to the traditions to actually consult with the gods and to be able to carry on their mission. So isn't it tricky in terms of religion and our spirituality, for instance?
It can be tricky, yes. If you are, a Christian, it can be very tricky because then you end up, especially if you're a pastor, you end up being very hypocritical because I've seen them come to see and to sit with my elders, and they sit there and they perform rituals to help them in life, to give them protection, to bring them good fortune. All of these things they do. I've sat there and watched them. And my elders have asked them, because they just say what's on their mind. They'll ask them, why are you preaching from that book and you come here? And there's not one pastor who's been asked that question who's actually answered the question. They'll just kind of smirk and they don't really reply to it at all. And say, so why you preach to your people from this book and then you come here for this? No answer. I've never heard them give an answer at all. Never. So,
Wow, this is very important information coming out here. Of course, we we know this so well, but sometimes when we sit, sometimes we might be thinking that we're insinuating things that are not. You are with the elder, the in this courtship of eldership, and you saying it. Kojo also was telling us the same things, that like they come back to the source where the truth is to even get knowledge, because so they know that whoever they're calling as God to protect them is not, is just as weak as anything that doesn't exist, and that would not be the one that would protect them. Of course, it will work for others and for their people, but not for us. Now, so what are the teachings that you focus on from your elders and people that you teach them, Chief Montana? How do they react to it? How is it growing in this sector?
oh, it's so what I primarily focus on is resetting the foundation. And the foundation is our ancestors. We have to start there. And then once we have a solid ancestral foundation, then build on top of that. Because if you, like anyone who's of African descent, I say if you're in the diaspora, and I'm finding out even people on the continent, there are some things in our bloodlines that need to be cleaned up. And so that's like where I start cleaning up your bloodline, because there's a lot of trauma in our bloodline. There are thousands upon thousands of our ancestors who never, ever, ever received their proper burial rights at all. We've actually been burying our people based on someone else's burial rights. And as a matter of fact, the burial rites that we perform throughout the diaspora, you can't even find that in the Bible. You can't find it. It's not there. So we're using someone else's tradition to actually bury our people, and it doesn't work. And so we need to begin that process of developing a solid ancestral foundation, and then cleaning up our bloodlines, cleaning up that trauma, because we actually inherit that trauma. And if we look at our families and we see our family, there's a lot of disorder in our families. There's a lot of drama in our families. And a lot of, in most instances, I'm not gonna say all because I haven't seen every single, family. And in most instances, it's because of the past. Because what happens in the past, whether it's good or bad, literally impacts the next 7 generations. And then that keeps happening, and keeps going, and keeps moving forward. for each generation. And so that's where I start. That's where, I started with my elders, is there. And the reception has been incredibly positive. There's not one person who has taken a class from me who has said, this is foreign to me. Everyone has said, wow, this is so familiar. Because as I tell my students all the time, there's absolutely positively nothing that I can teach you. The only thing I can do is assist you with remembering what you already know. And so it's a process of remembering. And once people begin to remember what they already know, they begin to remember these practices because they're so familiar to them. And it motivates them, it lights them up. And it really, really, really has them to reconnect to their ancestors. Because most people, they will have an experience. Many people in their families, someone will have an experience with an ancestor who is transitioned. It could be a grandmother, it could be a parent, a brother, sister, they're transitioned. Someone will come to the family and say, grandma came to me last night and said whatever she said. And it's very relevant to the family. And, so people have those experiences and we don't deny those experiences because they're real experiences. And then many of us will turn around and we will go to church on Sunday and someone will say to us, oh, when someone transitions, it's impossible for them to ever talk to you again or to ever visit you again. And I've had one of my students went to his pastor, because believe it or not, many of my students are actually Christian, went to his pastor about an experience he was having with his mother and his grandmother who had transitioned. They would come to him and tell him information about his sister to help his sister navigate through life. His sister was dealing with some issues. And when he went to his pastor said, oh, that's Satan, and we need to cast him out. That's what the pastor said to him. So go ahead.
Yes, when you explain it, we see exactly the main cause and source of our challenges. Like you said, some of our parents, I know this a lot in families that say, no, I've accepted Jesus, and so I don't practice all those things. Like normal traditional ceremonies that they used to do when the elder or the family member, the father would transit, they would not follow the customs traditions to do. Some of them possession of some kind of property, they burn them all and say, no, now I am. And you see some kind of strange things reoccurring in these families, but they seem to yet not believe it. They keep always thinking that, and they keep making mistakes and the mistakes. So you're like, what is that actually really matters to and his ancestors were alive, and now we're performing something that we're not. And now we going through crises and through going through disappointment, challenges, or health crisis and stuff, and we never refer it to that. Even the marriages, we no longer marry traditionally, and some rites that we're supposed to do, we begin to define them and say, no, now we're going to perform Christian relief rituals in the church through marriage and call them extravagant. You're talking about something. This is typical an abomination to the ancestors, isn't it? Are you hearing me?
You're breaking up really bad.
Wow. Right. It's not strange because a lot of things are actually going up. And for your information, my dear followers and dear Pan-Africans watching us, they publish unjustly. And so a lot is going on now. And we're just calling on you to actually relocate on the Afro the TV platform, because we're going to see a lot of coming up in the break-ins and all that we used to think is a technique. No, there's nothing about technique in it. So they are not really, maybe just some publishers, they just get to stop our speeches this. Fuse us not understand one another. It's about time, and that we know when we have our platforms, we dive on them and make the best use of it. So you got the app out there, AfroWorld.tv. Make sure you like it. Joshua is free on that platform, and we would be following him from there. And all of us are relocated. All the voices are speaking. We all know that it's getting more and more, like you can see here. So that's not coincidence. To be wise, one thing for all, and not let anyone stop us from taking what belongs to us. So, Chief Montana, I don't know if you just had, if you had overheard somehow this conversation I made here.
Yeah, I heard some of it, so I think I know what you were, some of what you were saying. So I'll say this, and I hope I'm in line with what you were talking about, because I think I will be. One of the things that I have discovered since I've been practicing within our traditions is that we don't understand the impact of what has happened after various family members who are living today, or some of them are ancestors who actually walked away from traditional practices. And it's been a huge impact. And a lot of times when we see our families sort of disrupted, and I've divined for people who are continental Africans, I've divined for people throughout the diaspora. And one of the things that I've seen pretty consistently with continental Africans is that I will see that there's a shrine that is being neglected in the family, which is at the root of the issues that they're having in the family. And I'll sometimes describe, if I can see where it is, I can describe where it is, and I'll say that, oh, it's in some room, and it's at your, I think your mother's side of the family. That's what it looks like. And they will say, yes, there is a shrine. My grandfather used to keep that shrine, but no one does that foolishness anymore. Like they'll say something like that, and the shrine will be locked away in the room, and no one is there. And it's an ancestral shrine or family shrine. And because many of us have walked away from tradition, it is impacting our families in a way that's very devastating. And not only does it impact, the immediate family, but it impacts the descendants, and it actually impacts, our descendants who are throughout the diaspora as well. And I've seen that time and time again, over and over. And it's a huge impact, and it's something that actually needs to be addressed at some point.
Okay, I keep getting that my sound is breaking up. Can you hear out there properly? Yes, Grace, you are right. Can you hear me out there? Just want to check with the viewers and the followers. Please keep Tom out there if you are hearing me. I hear that my sound is breaking. Okay.
Yeah, you're still breaking up on my side.
All right, but even from public, that's what I want to know. Am I still breaking out there, or do you hear me? Can you hear me? No? Okay. Wow. It's just breaking, or you don't hear me at all. Choppy, we can hear you clearly. Not well at all, still breaking. Okay. All right, so give us 1 second. Let's just refresh and let's see where this issue is coming from.
I can hear you now.
You can.
Yes.
All right. What about out there? Is it okay? I'm getting the notification on the connection. Sylvia, give me a sign. Is it every all right? So just go on and do the talking. I'll listen. Anything
You
that you
know,
want.
this is why I absolutely, and we'll see how this works. For me, within tradition, I always test the limits of it. That's just what I do.
Okay.
And when what I just thought about doing, I just sat here and called upon one of my spirits to go to you and to clear your line, whatever that is that's interfering with your line, to move it out of the way
Wow.
until
And now it's
you're
it's
finished.
back.
So yes. So I always do, I always test, the limits of traditional stuff. I always do. Just to see.
This is so awesome. Thank you. Did you hear what Chief Montana said? Before we go on the Pan African Daily TV, even our guards, we need to consult them. We need to ask them to open up the way, because a lot of people would just be putting up their foots and stuff, just like in your lives, just like in our lives. And sometimes we wonder why things keep happening to us. And he was just saying he's just been talking to the elders to, like, hey, open us the way, and now we're back. So there's no refreshing. We never refresh. Everything is fine. They are right here with us. Believe it or not, nothing is going to reconcile us to our true self, to our spirituality. Now, Chief Montana, just tell us a little bit, what is spirituality? Because when our Christian brothers and sisters in the religion hear about spirituality, it becomes some kind of like a weird, bewitched kind of thing. And so they start thinking about, if you say, for instance, in the church, I'm baptizing, then it sounds okay. But if you say it's a ritual, it's a church ritual, then it becomes bewitched. Just the difference between a ritual and baptism. So, where is the problem?
So this is, so I'm gonna sum spirituality up, and it's very simple. It's really when you are connected to nature, you're connected to your ancestors, and you're connected to spirit.
Yeah.
Those three things combined and used properly, that's actually spirituality itself. Because those things, if you look at, if you say, for example, let me see if I can put in a good context for someone. So say you just say God, for example, right?
Mhm.
Whatever word you have for God, doesn't matter. If God created all things and you're not connected to all those things, then are you connected to God, or whatever you call God? And
Mhm.
everything that we need is actually here. And the beautiful thing is our ancestors understood that. They understood spirituality on a very, very deep level. And they understood how to bring together, different herbs, and how to perform a ritual over those herbs, how to say different chants, and to have something happen. And so spirituality is really when you're rooted and you're connected to nature, spirit, and ancestors. And if you look at our traditional systems, those three things are at the root of all of them, period. And then everything else sits on top of that, or the expression of it is based upon, the environment. It's based upon, what's there. It's based upon nature. It's based upon, spirit. It's based upon ancestors. That's the expression of it.
Wow. Exactly. I mean, oh, I can feel that energy. Like, my people are feeling that energy out there. And please, we just dropped the link to the free Pan African Daily TV webinar on exactly the solutions to what we're talking about on that very topic, and the notion that nothing is wrong with us Black people. Something happened to us. Something happened to us. You want to get solutions. You want to follow up to understand how it works. You want to get on a one-on-one to know how you can actually get access to just reversing and to bringing solutions to yourself and your people. Click on that link on the webinar and get free education for free. Yes. So, Chief Montana,
Yes.
you're telling us something so true here. And I'm happy because you're just solving a problem spiritually, traditional problem. Now, when we look at our continent and everything that we have been talking about, political, economic, social development, whatever, education, particularly education, what we were taught, and on in any case, the height, particularly this sector from us, you never see it appear anywhere, or they replace it with what they wanted us to know. Now, the solution that we are seeing, just like what is happening now, is that until we connect back to this root, then we would start automatically enjoying our God-given or creator, what we're supposed and what we lost for all these years.
Mm. Yeah. So until we, the solution is extremely simple. And this is what I love about our traditional systems. They're very cut and dry. It's very, very simple.
Mhm.
To begin to resolve the issue, to begin to reconnect, all it takes is a bowl and some water. That's it.
Bowl and water.
That's all that it takes is a bowl, water, and you're giving the water as libation. And you call upon your ancestors, you call upon your great ancestors, and you tell them that you don't know them, but they know you, and you are their grandchild. And then you begin to tell them why you have come to them. But the way that you speak to them is not as though you have humbled yourself, you're begging for something. You speak to them as though you're just having a conversation.
Mhm.
You speak to them as though like you're giving them directives. You're telling them, this is what I need for you to do. And you don't ask. You tell them, this is what I need. And it's like a command. It's just a very clear directive, in the same way that when our ancestors speak to us, it's never a question. It's always a directive.
Mhm.
Do this, go right, go left, jump, whatever they say. And it's never in the form of, oh, do you want to jump? Do you want to go right? Do you want to go left? It's like, go left. And then we choose what to do from that point on. But the solution is simple. It's a bowl and water. That is it. And then you will see like your ancestors will actually begin to show up for you. They'll begin to come to you. And then they will begin to adhere to your directives. And they will point you in the direction in which you need to go in so that you can dive deeper. And so then you'll know what it looks like to operate within a traditional system. But the key is you have to be willing to allow yourself, you have to give yourself permission to adhere to their directives. If they say go right, just be like, let me just go to the right, and you'll see. That's why so many times in life, we are embarking on something, whatever it is, and we will hear something that says, go to the right. But the left looks more appealing. And we will go to the left. And then once we go left and we face what is to the left, one of the first things we say is, something told me that I should
Exactly.
have gone to the right. And those are your ancestors attempting to guide you where you need to go. But we don't know because we're not trained in that way. We don't know because like we're domesticated like cattle. And so someone says to us, this is how you should operate. Someone says to us, this is who you are. And we believe it. We're nurtured that way.
Mhm.
But every now and then we get a glimpse of our nature. And our nature is who we were born into this world as. But when you begin to connect with your ancestors, you actually begin to become more acquainted with and closer to your actual nature.
Mhm.
You were all born as someone. No one can make you into, for example, an elder. No one can make you into a leader. You're born as that. And it's as simple as that, because that's your nature. And so the solution is just bowl and water. And you go to your ancestors and you tell them that you've come to them to reestablish a tradition that has been lost, a tradition that has been forgotten, the tradition that sustained them in the beginning. And if you have your way, it will sustain you and your family until the end. And you tell them you want to return to that. You tell them you want to return and connect with your nature. You're ready to fulfill the purpose in which they have sent you into this lifetime to fulfill. Be ready for that one. And that is when, like, the most beautiful journey in the world begins for you. That is when they know that you are listening. That is when they smile at their grandchildren, because they know that they're ready to come back home. And home is your nature. That is home. That's who you were born into this world as. That's where all of your power exists. Unfortunately, we have been taught that, we look for power in the church. We look for power over here. We look for power over there, and not understanding that the power is right here. It's at our feet. And all we must do is say to our ancestors that you're ready to fulfill your purpose. You're ready to exist in your true nature. You're ready to exercise your true nature. That is it. It is really that simple. It is literally a 5-minute or less, probably 3-minute invocation. That's all you have to do. And then you have to be ready when you go to them and you make such a bold request. Because what happens is that the people in your life, the things in your life that do not serve you will be sent away. And it will be replaced with things that do serve your request. Because who we are today is someone who is inadequate or insufficient enough to fulfill that particular request. And so we have to be built up. We have to remember who we are. And so that ride is a beautiful ride, but it only becomes troublesome. It only becomes worrisome when you're stubborn, when you reject and you resist the path in which your ancestors are sending you on based upon your request. So yeah, that's it. It's simple. It's very easy.
Wow. It is so easy, and they are helping us to facilitate the understanding. And I know that you watchers out there, followers, and you're watching this particular session because we are rounding up the end of this year and we want to know our position. It is not by chance that we were brought through the pandemic this year, so we can pull back from everything that has been an illusion chasing us left and right. We never had time to sit down and converse. Imagine without the lockdown, most of us would have been sleeping now to go to work, or even we're at work, but that arrest, I call it our ancestral arrest, that arrested the world and say, now you got to let my people go. We are sitting here and enjoying and getting it, and they are facilitating us with the knowledge of understanding and getting it just plumb. Now, if you start comparing things, because Chief Montana is saying something very relevant, water and a bowl. And if you look at even in the religious structure in the church, when they do baptism, what do they use? They use also water and a bucket or something like that. And
Yeah,
but they just do it in the name of someone else that is not us.
absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to understand, and you said something about this earlier, like baptism is a ritual. That's what it is. That it's plain and simple. Communion is a ritual. That's what it is. It's plain and simple. And the longest ritual that's performed is, well, yeah, it's actually the sermon. When you're listening to the sermon, that's a ritual that's being performed. Praise and worship is a ritual. That's all it is. All of those things are rituals. Period. But if you say that, it's not looked upon favorably if you actually tell someone like this is a ritual. And we have to begin to see, especially in the church, how many things that we brought from our traditions into the church.
Mhm.
They're sitting right there. It's plain and simple. It's like within some of our traditions, when someone is being ridden by spirit, and we see this, I know in the diaspora, we see this throughout churches. When someone's being ridden by spirit, and we'll say they caught the Holy Ghost, there are elders who will come and they will actually wrap the person in like a blanket or sheet or something, and they'll take them away. And they'll take them away to get the message that spirit is giving to them for community. But what we've done in many modern churches, you'll see that practice still in existence, but we've forgotten what to do. So they will come and cover them with a blanket, or maybe someone's jacket or something like that. And a lot of times I've seen, like, they'll leave them laying on the floor,
Mhm.
and they'll go on with the service. And then when the person comes to, they'll get up and go back to their seats or whatever. And so we've forgotten that there's actually a message in that, period. And so a lot of those things we brought them into the church, but we don't know what to do with it because we've forgotten totally. We've totally forgotten, even down to the music. If you listen to music within the African churches throughout the diaspora and even on the continent, if you pay attention to the music and listen to either the organist or piano player or as the drummer, at a certain point, they will lace a rhythm on top of the music. And the moment they do that, people lose their minds. It's no different than if you look at a lot of our traditional rituals. And if you speak to drummers who actually drum within rituals, they're like, yeah, we lace a rhythm, and that rhythm actually calls forth spirit. That's what happens. That's why people will just lose it in that moment. And years ago, I spoke with a guy who played. He was the organist within a church, and he said, yeah, he didn't know that it was ushering in spirit, but he knew that if he played a certain rhythm, then people would actually react to it, and he would do it. And he did that. He said it was natural for him to do that, very natural. And so there's so many things that we brought into the modern church that we have no clue where it comes from. And people go and practice it every single Sunday. So yeah.
You touch a very relevant point. I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation. I don't know about you out there. I'll be opening the line soon because I know that everyone is itchy. Today we are live. It's not a rebroadcast like we did on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Today we are live, and you can always follow us. When I share the post, you're gonna see if it's a rebroadcast. We're gonna put it on that, and we usually do rebroadcast only on the days that we are sitting and trying to hold a meeting on the Pan African and plan the week. So please always make sure you watch out on the program fly. You're gonna see rebroadcast. It's a rebroadcast that will bring a conversation, to keep the audience warm, particularly on Sundays and Mondays when we're not doing live streams, except there is an urgency that we're gonna be doing a rebroadcast, just for your information. Um, the thing that you said that I want to bring our attention to, you talked about music. And if you even look at the difference between the church music
Mm-hmm.
and our traditional music, and you look at the sound system and the rhythm and the dance, right? In
Mm-hmm.
our traditional system, we jovial, we dance to it, we move. We are our all senses are full. We're stamping our feet or we're clapping our hands. We're just cheerful. It's a cheerful activity that we perform at that time. And the higher the rhythm, the more connected we are, and the more we stamp our feet. And to understand that we're even humans, you see the way we move our rhythm. We're rhythmic, our waist, our back, our hands, our head, our everything. But
Mm-hmm.
now, if you take the religious sector and you look at the music in the church, and it's always something that has to go to your brain. It has to remind you always about sorrow. I never seen until even as Black people started bringing the gospels, the spirituals, and they would clap and they would dance and they would like. That's the only time in Germany in December, if not of COVID, that you will see our brothers from Black Americans, coming to do these gospels, and it would be so damn full. Why? They don't even get the message. It's not about the message. It's just about the rhythm and the smiles and enchantment and the joy that they bring around. Even though it's Christmas, it's weary, it's cold, but you get something else comparatively to what they sell to us as music in the church. What is the difference?
There's really, it's there's a difference, and I'm going to say what that is in a second. But in the way that it moves us, there's no difference in how it moves us. When we hear the music, it forces us. It's like something comes over us. We can be in the club, we can be at home, we can be in a church service, and we hear music, and especially music at a certain rhythm. It actually, transforms us somewhere. It actually moves us in a way that we wouldn't ordinarily move. And the beautiful thing is that it begins to connect us to spirit. It begins to connect us to the spiritual realm. And that's one of the things that happens with music. And that's why, like, major ceremonies, major rituals, you will never see them take place in tradition without music. Music ushers in everything. Music, it's like it opens up a portal, or it opens up a gateway into the other world. And so from that perspective, that this is not a major difference at all, because it moves us in a way that we wouldn't ordinarily move. And there was a guy, he was a DJ here in the US. He wrote an article. If I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have searched for it. But he talked about people of African descent. He did a lot of research and how we respond to music. And he said that if you're playing music at a rhythm, I think he said of at least 120 to 125 BPMs, we will actually begin to move to that. We will begin to vibrate. Our heart rate will actually increase to that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it moves us in a way where, according to his article and his research, it does not move other people in the same way. And that's why we will listen to music at a certain frequency and we'll move, and other people will just sit there and just say, oh, that sounds good. Really, it's a good rhythm. But it moves us because we actually become in sync with the music. Our heart rate becomes in sync with the music. And that's the thing that like opens up this chamber, or opens up this pathway into the spiritual realm.
Wow. A lot coming up. We touch music, we touch baptism and rituals and getting a bowl and the water. Now we want to touch. We want to touch the message. The message. The message in our African world or in our ancestral. The message, like you said, is always prosperity, bring you luck. If you're married, they make ceremonies that you bring forth children, and ceremonies will be the ones that to take diseases, or in case of something, or all this kind. It's always a positive message. It's always a forward message. It's always a message that gives you the hope and the ability to live, and to, they give you even the message of the transition. All right. But we go to the religious setup and the church. The message, there's something about the message that has to remind you how you are always a sinner, and you would not even make it here until you go to the next dimension. That's where all sins will be. So no matter what you do here, so that's that reminder that holds you of that guilt. And then another thing that I realized, I don't know whether they preach this once only to us, they always would tell you about the sins even of your fathers, of your ancestors, would be transferred to you until now you give your life, as if you're negotiating, to give your life. You're negotiating with the creator, whether should I give my life or not, or he's even asking for it. He doesn't have the power to even take it. So the confusion between the message of happiness, joy, prosperity, good wishes, everything good, and the message of like you are a sinner. Even if you just look at another man's wife, just wind her waist, you already sin without even thinking whether you love her. You understand? It is so weird that at every angle of the message, you are always wrong at one point in time.
Yeah, so this is what I'll say about that. I mean, it's just so much to unpack about all of that. We have to understand like human nature. If someone can keep you in a state of fear, if someone can keep you in like the state of emergency, then they can actually do whatever they want to do to you. They can have their way with you. They can tell you to do anything and you will do it because there's fear there. And one of the things that we must understand is that you are born whole and complete. You're not born as a filthy rag. I've heard someone say that before. That's not even remotely true. Mm-hmm. You're born whole and complete. And you have someone to come along to say, from a Christian perspective, begin to tell you that you're not that. They begin to tell you like you were born into sin. So that makes you a sinner. Mm-hmm. And you can't even blink your eye 3 times and then you've actually sinned. There's some violation that you've created. Mm-hmm. And most of the things that people are doing, just things wrapped around just human nature itself, just how human beings operate. But the many of the principles within religions are actually counterintuitive to basic human nature. It's really the opposite of how human beings would ordinarily operate, period. And so it keeps people in this state of fear. It keeps people in a state of emergency. Like at any moment, something is going to happen. It's like when I was 16, I got baptized. I grew up in a Christian family, a Christian mm-hmm. home. So I got baptized at age 16. And as an adult, I think I was like, in my 20s, I was having a conversation with my mother. And so we were talking about religion and church. And she said to me, so when you got baptized, it wasn't because you loved Jesus? I said, absolutely not. I said, I was afraid that I was going to walk out of church and get hit by a car and die. So I said, it was all fear-based. I said, that is the only reason I did it, period. Because, I was a sinner. More than likely, I was going to go to hell. for the simplest things, that whatever I've done, and it could be the last time that I have an opportunity to seek any type of redemption. It was the last time. So, I told her, I said it was only because I was afraid that I may walk out of the church and get hit by a car, and that ends it. So it was all fear-based. But when people can have you exist in a state of fear, they can control you.
Mhm.
That is why, like, that message is just repeated over and over and over and over and over. What we have to understand is that what is being done to us is no different than what the Roman Catholic Church did to other European nations to actually subdue them.
Mhm.
It's the same playbook. The playbook isn't different at all. And it's just our turn to actually have the playbook played on us. And so it's life from a traditional perspective. It's all about living. Life it's all about giving. It's all about family. It's all about community. It's all about, if one person makes it, then everybody makes it. If one person doesn't make it, everybody goes back and pulls that person forward so they can make it. That's what it's about. And that's how our ancestors lived until, we were introduced to Christianity, and it totally flipped our world upside down. Totally. And one of the things, my father's a Christian, but one of the things he said to me one day, he said, he said, I don't know what God Europeans, or no, I'm saying the way he said it. He said, I don't know what God that white man prays to, but it's not the same one I do.
Mhm.
It was very clear about that. Very, very clear. And when he said that, it stuck with me to this day, because he understood that there's something there that is amiss. There's something there that doesn't add up at all.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, like many of our parents, they're older, and many of them don't, like, they'll recognize that there's a difference. I will sit and speak to my father, and we have long, like, beautiful conversations about the world, about religion, and he agrees with everything. But he's not willing to let go of Christianity because that's all that he knows.
Mhm.
Even though he has come to me and asked me to teach him how to connect with our ancestors. And so a lot of times, people won't let go because of fear, because they don't want to be a sinner. And so to walk away from Christianity is one of the greatest sins you could commit, because they'll say you turned your back on God. And so
Mhm.
that's a grievous offense. And as human beings, we generally don't want to create or commit grievous offenses. We just don't want to do that at
Mhm.
all. And so, it's fear, and it forces people to live in fear totally. And it doesn't work at the end of the day. It doesn't. It has us in disharmony.
Mhm.
That's where it places us. So yeah, so that's that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I see people already being so anxious to call and share their views and to take questions or to ask you questions directly. Please, one last. We are 21:19, so at 30, I'm opening the lines. You know the rules. We need to get a lot of information out of Chief Montana before we see him on Saturday. We're lucky that he's on this ceremony of our reconciliation, Africa and its diaspora with their ancestral and spiritual for the first time after 400 years. I've been trying to put in to play the image video. It's not loading here. That's why you see me just being inconsistent, watching you and trying to set up everything here, but it's not going. But Be aware after this program, check your WhatsApp, your the YouTube link. We're gonna share it on the YouTube tonight, and we continue to share it. Please, if you get it, the link, make sure you share it in all the groups. We want to connect all Black people everywhere in Europe, in the West, in the North, in the South, in the East region, on the continent and in its diaspora, be them in West Papua, be them in Haiti or in Brazil. We want to connect and reconcile for once and for all. Under the motto, Sankofa, we are united and stronger forever, and never would we be apart. This ceremony is very important for you to get this initiation on Saturday. Make sure you are here on Saturday. It's going to be a whole day with a lot of speakers and the drumming, like he's saying. And he's going to be one of those that would give a seminar and also would give a drum session connecting all the drummers globally. You know what he's saying, and you know the right time for you to go back to who you were. So the last question, since I opened the line, Glendon, I know you can't even wait, Glendon. Just 1 second and we're done. The last question he mentioned that I want him to educate us and really sound it is that fear. Now, how does it operate between religion and our spirituality? Fear has been packaged to us through death. So the topic we are talking about now is death. In our ancestral and tradition, we pass on, we transit so we don't die, as a matter of fact. We relocate from this dimension. We heard that. Could you tell us? The Reverend Phillips was here. He told us. Professor James Small was here. He told us. All of them are going to be on this reconciliation declaration on Saturday. It is one of the most important lifetime events of our lives. For the first time after 400 years, that we are openly declaring that today we are united with our ancestors, and we're going back to find out who we are and connect to them till afterlife. Now, if you look at death in the setting of the church, that is something that, and that's where they catch us, like you said, the issue of fear is characterized by the idea of death. And even though we know that we would die, but what is then the fear? What is then the fear? Because this fear is what completely derails us and keep us on another tempo, even though we are all aware that it can be now, it can be at any time. But if we connect it to our ancestors, we know that you would know when they call you home. I know it from my father. I know it from my ancestors. When it was time for them to relocate, they said it. They actually gave a sign. My father told me, you would see the sign and you know that my time is up. And each time when I started, because he died at 100 plus, and I keep always communicating with him and like, that is it time. He said, no, you would know. And when the time came, you know it. So that connection is there, and and he's telling you, oh, don't even worry, because I've left a lot behind. I'm here with you at all times. So you didn't have that fear. You didn't have anything. You just know he's always here. And I believe it. And I know, I talk to him every day. So, but in the religious context, you know that your person dies, you never would have even any access. If you do it, you're even afraid. We're afraid of our graveyards. And that's honest. Why? Your mom, your dad that raised you up, they lay him to rest. Instead, that would be the best place you want to be. Why is it that we are afraid of our loved ones when we bury them? And we always see ghosts. We always are the ones seeing them in some kind of a format. We always see them because of always a negative effect is frightening us. So we miss our goals. We miss our sense of direction. We live under constant fear. We can't even reach our potentials, because instead of you unleashing what your ancestors gave to you have to do some complete agenda to stay on that ability not to fear. So you can't even talk about your right. You can't even talk about bad governance on your continent. You're so afraid because that simple attitude of like, you can't even talk about the need that we all know that Jesus is not white. We're so afraid of how the other people will still look at us like, oh, Susan Tata now is a witch. She's a god. As she says, she's a goddess, goddess of water or what. And everything becomes so mystical. That fear has been packaged to us. But in our own tradition and our ancestral, the attitude of death is a joy. It's a pleasant ceremony. You see the occasions that they make, and he's happy to go and you rejoin his ancestors. He's been working and he's tired, and a lot of them just go and rest. And now, but us, we always just like even to watch the cups lying there. It's a problem. Over to you.
So this is where the fear comes from. Take a match or lighter, stick your hand out, hold it under your hand, and it burns. It's gonna hurt. And so just imagine that someone tells you that you're going to burn in a lake of fire if you have not lived a righteous life. And your mind will immediately go to either when you were a child and you maybe touched a hot pot, a hot stove, or something, and it burned you. And it was painful. And so then people will imagine like their entire body's engulfed in flame. It's painful. No one wants that experience at all. No one wants that one. And so we have to understand, like, that's the fear. People are afraid because people know that they have not lived a righteous life in accordance to the tenets in Christianity. That's why the fear exists. And so they're afraid to die because they think when you talk to many people, they literally believe that is the end. It's final. There's no coming back from that. But what people have to understand also is that even within Christianity, prior to 532 CE, reincarnation was practiced in the Christian church. You could take classes on it, which says that there was some type of ancestral acknowledgement somewhere. All of that is documented, and it was taken out in, I think, 532 CE of all of the churches, period. And so, and it was only taken out, I think it was Emperor Constantine. He led the charge to have reincarnation removed from Christianity, because from his logic, if reincarnation exists, then he could never be deified.
Mm-hmm.
If reincarnation exists, he can come back and be a peasant or beggar, and he didn't want that. And so he led the commission. It was he and his I think his mother and his wife. They led the commission to have that removed. And then I think the date is 532 CE, sometime around there.
Good. But okay, lines. Oh, we lost him. Wow. He will definitely join us here. He's going to join us here. Yes, he's gonna join us here. It is obvious, like he was saying, who do they pray to? But we see it very, all the saints we're doing on Saint Martin's Day, on Saint Michael's Day, on Saint this. Do these names look like your names, African people? Do they look like your saints? So who are they? And they their ancestors that they're praying to? And even the Lord Jesus is theirs ancestors. The problem is, I don't want people to misunderstand us when we say we're going back to our way center spiritually. We're not saying that these things don't exist. The Saint Michael or who or Jesus that exist. They do, but it's not for you, African. It's not. He doesn't look like you, so he can't create you. Why would he create a global world and choose one color to be in it? We all know that that is not true. We know it. So I'm happy you're back. Are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Oh, thank God. Yes.
Yeah. So as I was saying, like, reincarnation was there, and it was taken out. Now, if you look at tradition, And I can't speak for every African tradition because I haven't studied all of them, so I'm clear about that. But there's certain taboos that you would commit that would actually have you to be translates into like a bad ancestor or unfavorable ancestor. And those taboos are things like suicide. To commit suicide of your own doing, that means that you were sane, you were in your right mind. You just got up one morning and said, you know what, I'm done. And you were very aware of what was happening. Now, if you were driven to madness, that's an exception because that's not of your own doing. And so that's one of the taboos that would exist. There are others also. And so that would constitute you being, a bad ancestor. But within our traditions itself, within our ceremonies, within our burial rites, we actually perform those burial rites in order to have our ancestors come to get our loved one who recently transitioned and take them home. And it's not this thing where, you're going to go to hell. So there's not really that concept there that exists from the traditions that I've studied. And so you're not going to burn in a lake of fire. That's not going to happen at all. If you violate those taboos, and it's only a handful of taboos. It's not like it's this laundry list of taboos. It's not. And they're taboos that are easily avoidable. For example, if you're someone who like commits atrocities against nature, and as human beings, we have to understand we are nature. And so someone who goes out and they commits mass murder, no justification for that, then you would be considered as a bad ancestor. And so then you would not have any burial rites performed for you if you committed those taboos. They would just take you, dig a hole, bury you, and walk away. For the most part, that's what happens. And so that's one of the reasons why like there's less fear from a traditional perspective, and then there's great fear from a religious or from a Judeo-Christian religion-based perspective, because you can't even walk outside and stretch in the sun without possibly having an ungodly thought about something that you've sinned. So you need to go and repent for that. And it's a thought that you didn't control at all. You didn't bring on that thought. And so that's, for me, like that's the fundamental difference right there. It's one is fear-based because you're going to burn in a lake of fire. And there's very little fear from a traditional perspective because the taboos that exist there are at a minimum. And there are things that are easily avoidable. And then the cultural context that you live in actually supports you being an honorable person. People in your community support you being honorable, support you doing the right thing. Like you have that support that exists. And so within Christianity, you're kind of on your own, left up like to your own devices. And so traditionally, if someone is committing some crime, or someone is just a habitual liar or a thief, and they're like a habitual thief, someone will go have a divination done to find out why is this person behaving this way, and then see what can be done to rectify that behavior. And then there's a simple ritual performed. The person may have to bathe in some herbs and eat like medicine, and that ends it. That's it. But from a Judeo-Christian perspective, there's nothing like that. No one does an investigation to see. There's no support to see what is causing you to commit certain actions that may be considered or deemed as being immoral or something like that. And so you left up to prayer and your own devices to kind of work it out yourself. And so that creates more and more fear because, if something is driving you to steal, you could be ridden by a spirit that's driving you to steal. I don't know. and you're doing it over and over, there's more guilt that you're going to build up because you don't want to steal, but you can't help but steal. You don't want to lie, but you can't help but lie all the time. And so there's no support around it. And so that brings about that element of fear also, because there's no support around what you're dealing with in life. So that's like what, from my perspective, why there's fear on one side and why there's not fear on the other side at all.
Absolute. Okay, so the lines are open, ladies and gentlemen. Call WhatsApp +49 1578 211 2379 +49 1578 211 2379. Yes, the lines are open. We're waiting for your calls. We're waiting for your calls. And be reminded that 12 of 12, this Saturday that is coming. Yeah, it's the D-Day. So, yes, Glendon. Hello.
Good evening, my sister. Good evening, good night. My brother, Chief Matara. You don't have to be full, didn't you? I've been waiting patiently. Okay, my thing is this. I have somewhat of a question, and maybe you could help me understand to some degree what I'm talking about here. Sound. Are you familiar with like sine waves and other type of waves and how the sound vibrates? Now, what I have come to understand over time is that the heart beats with a rhythm, and part of your being functions based on the rhythm that is within you. We, as the original people, we vibrate on a certain rhythm, a certain wave. And it can be distorted. I mean, you may know there's a way people can interfere with your wave, with your rhythm, and throw you off of your vibration. And there's a way you can get it back though, in order for you to function to your fullest capacity. Now, I was never trained in any of these things. I have no knowledge, no official knowledge of any of these. I have just been raised in the Caribbean in an environment where some of these things were practiced, but I have no understanding of it. I was never taught of it. I was never schooled anywhere. So everything I say now is based on memory and to some degree a little understanding, like trying to piece the puzzle together, like what was that I was really seeing. So help me understand just the vibration part of it, the sound part of it. And like sometimes you see somebody going crazy, a person might say they have gone crazy, and you can't really justify why that has been. I have some ideas as to why things can happen like that. Believing that their rhythm, their vibration has been changed, has been altered. So they are not functioning in their own rhythm, or in the truest sense, the rhythm of the African people. They have lost it. Help me understand some of that, please.
Okay.
Thanks for taking my question. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much. Chief Montana, I will just go ahead and take the questions that you note down. We have one on vibration. I'm taking this other one so that when you start answering, you can answer them, simultaneously. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Susan.
Yes.
Greetings to your listeners, and I would like to thank. My name is Livingston. I'm calling from Ghana.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Chief Montana for his education, and I'm thinking this is the kind of message that what people need once a while. Okay, we have started this Black Conscious movement all across Ghana, where we are debunking all these religions. We want to go back to our spirituality. And I've really enjoyed the program this evening. I just want to add a few things for people to understand certain things. You know, when we were children, we were going to Sunday school and we were told a lot of the things our ancestors did were bad.
Yes.
And they called them idol worshiping and stuff. When I grew up, I was looking at something. I went to my village. I went to see a chief priest there, and the tree, that there was a tree they once served at a village. I look at the magnitude of the tree, how big it was, and even the fruit of the tree was also a very good food that the people used to eat. Then I remember telling myself, I think our ancestors were they were wiser than this generation, I would say that, to the extent that if our ancestors saw the power in that tree, one, the tree could give them food. The same tree could give them shade. Okay? The same tree, when they are sick, they use both the herbs and the roots to cure themselves. They saw the divinity of God in that tree. So they decided to worship the tree. Now, we are in the 21st century where you were told worshiping the tree is an idol worship. Now, the tree has been cut down and the cross has been engraved from the dead tree. And you hang this cross in your room and you pray to this cross every morning. That same tree has been cut down and the statue of Saint Mary has been engraved from this tree. And that is what you kneel down in front of. This is what our people are not seeing. I told my people, look, our ancestors were connected with the deepest form of spirituality because we were connected to nature.
Yes.
One religion is telling us our ancestors worship dead things. Today, I have the evidence that our ancestors were worshiping living things. Because when you look at the rivers, when you look at the trees, they are the biggest part of nature that our ancestors saw. So I tell my people all the time, Africa knew the divinity. Africa, we understood the divine because before the coming of the white man and their Bible and Quran into the land of Africa, I say this all the time. What did they come to do? They just came to replace our ways of worship. They took what we had, they made us throw them away, and now instead of praying to the stone in your village, you rather pray to a stone that can be found on someone's land far away, Arabia.
Yes.
You pray in the direction of a stone in a far away land, because you have the natural stone in your hometown. Now you go to church and you forget the picture of your grandma in your room and you go and kneel down in front of the statue of St. Paul, St. Peter's. These names are not your names. This is what we need. This is where we formed this movement in Ghana called the Common Sense Family. We are telling our people, no, our spirituality is deeper than religion. Religion, like Chief Montana is saying, just puts you under fear. The fear of heaven and hell. When you do good, you go to heaven. When you do bad, you go to hell. This is what is eating the brains of our people. And you cannot walk uprightly. And every human knows they can't walk upright. So every time you have to go to the church. Susan, there are some people who have spent 50 quality years of their time in church. Today, this 50-year-old man will still sit down for a 20-year-old boy to graduate a Bible school within 3 months and come and continue teaching this man how to read and understand the Bible. Why? Because it just puts you under fear of heaven and hell. That was what the church created. And there is no form of spirituality. In Africa, we give because we know it is humanly to give. When you go to church, why do you give? You give because you want God to bless you. You give because you want to go to heaven. Now, when you remove heaven, then I think the people who go to church, they can't be good. Because they only go towards you because they want to go to heaven. That is not spirituality. That is keeping you under control. That is why the African minds are still under control. We cannot reason above religion. And I think these are some of the topics I want to see on your program all the time. I love Chief Montana. I'll follow him everywhere. You said you'll be here on Saturday, and
Yes.
I would like to come and listen. We need to teach our people a lot. Africa, we have great spirituality. If we can connect back and connect with nature and our ancestors, Africa will be greater than we even anticipate.
Yes.
This is what we want. So thank you very much, Suzanne, and thank Chief Montana for coming. We love him. We should continue the good way.
Thank you very much, Elder. Thank you so much. Yes. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're connected. Welcome to the show.
I just wanted to say thank you to brothers, my brother Montana.
Yes.
Yeah, what I want to talk about is that actually what is going on in the mind of our people now. I think we really need kind of a healing, because already people are playing this white kind of picture of I don't know, the guy who acted the Jesus Christ movie. But normally, if you can compare the gospel that is happening now and comparing in our African tradition, we didn't have grease in us. We didn't sin. We don't dwell in sin actually.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think what we have to do is we have to go back to our time.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually in our tradition, like when you see a stranger or a visitor or someone who needs help, we were helping each other without teachings of the Bible, of the gospel, or kind of. It's in our nature. That's we have to go back there and explain nicely to our people, to tell them that this is a brainwashing process. And obviously, we have some teachings. Actually, I was born in a Christian family, whereby I was told that if you do this, you'll go to hell and whatsoever. But growing up now, looking at things, I see that these teachings of the gospel, it's a really full aspect. Because now we have got some teachings, the songs, Take the World, Give Me Jesus. But those people who introduced the very same kind of teachings, they're having everything, they're taking everything. So who says if we die, we are going to heaven to share heaven with them? And the way they cannot even share the world with us, they cannot share even anything with us. I think we have to correct him that way. I think that must be corrected. Again, I wanted to add that I want, how can I connect with the brother Matana in personally talking?
How can you do what?
I get connected to the brother in the show.
Okay.
Personally.
All right, I will send his contact to you after the show. Chief
Okay,
Montana.
don't forget, please.
No, I won't forget.
Yeah, tell him thank you. Okay. Tell him thank you. You must keep it up. People you have to know. Also this side, South African side, hey, it's hectic. White men, white people are still here. And they are still teaching people that they should fight for the work, fight for the job. Brothers are killing each other. We are trying also this side to push, to tell people
yes,
that that is not the way. So yeah, we are one people. We should love each other.
Wow. Thank you. And thank you so much for the work you're doing out there in South Africa. And exactly when we roll out this carpet of brainwashing and just give our people the right to understand who they are, I think it's their basic right. So we thank you for your engagement so much.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Good. So I think, yeah, over to you, Chief Montana.
Yes. Wow. So I'll talk about sound first, and then I'll comment on something the other caller said. So in regards to sound and vibration, one of the things that some of us are aware of and some of us are not is that nature itself vibrates at a certain frequency. that is in alignment with how we or our vibrational frequency.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened is that, and this was very intentional. I have a friend of mine who has a PhD in music, and she was telling me about during her studies, there was an intentional effort to alter the frequency of music, which impacts the frequency of nature. And so that's why a lot of times, a lot of modern music is at a certain frequency. And it will drive you to do things that, you know, some people may not ordinarily do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. This was some years back. This is when I initially began to realize like something is going on around the frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So this was back when there was a kid. His name was Trayvon Martin. He was murdered here in the U.S. in the state of Florida. He was just walking through a neighborhood, and this white guy thought he was an intruder, but he killed him basically. So I'm gonna just cut to the chase. And I was going to a concert maybe a few weeks later, and I could hear the music from the concert, and there was a song about revolution, and I could hear the artist. I was actually driving, looking for a parking space, and I could hear the artist playing the music. I could hear the artist talking about Trayvon, and there needs to be a revolution. And it was really, you know, getting me hyped to like really go out into the world and make a difference. The young lady that I went to the concert with actually turned on some gospel music.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I began to feel very docile, very submissive. And it was like that charge to want to take action immediately went away. I began to feel as though I have nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Poor fella. I hope his family is fine. Like these were my thoughts, and it altered, like my thoughts and my way of being altered in a matter of seconds the moment she turned that music on. And that's when I began to really realize that there's something that is laced in the music that is having us to behave a certain way, that is giving us our way of being, that is having us look at one another a certain way and look at white people, other people differently than we may look at one another. And so when the brother talks about sound and the vibration of sound, yes, that is it impacts our mood, it impacts our sanity, it impacts all of it. And that is why I started this initiative. Every year, starting the first weekend in June, just started this past June, to have a global drumming event that lasts for like 7 weeks. Because I was laying in the bed, I had awakened one morning. This was back in May of this year, because I was in Ghana. I couldn't leave to come back to the States because the borders were closed. Woke up one morning, and I had my ancestors were speaking to me loudly. And they said, you need to start a global drumming event. And they laid out the entire event. Not only did they lay out the event, they told me who to contact to assist with the event. And the person who they told me to contact, I hadn't spoken to in years. There was never any bad blood. We just lost contact in years. Mm-hmm. And I was a little apprehensive about contacting her, but I went out and called and dialed her number. It was an old number, and the number didn't work anymore. So I had no clue, like, how am I going to get in touch with this woman? Mm-hmm. And I went online that morning to see if I could find her on Facebook. And you know, in Facebook Messenger, it reads your story or our story or something like that. Mm-hmm. I've never clicked on that thing ever. And something said, click it. I clicked it. And the very first video that was there was one of her husband and their son. And that contact that gave me access to her, and that's how I contacted her. And we started this event. But they said the purpose of the event is to reset the frequency of nature to a frequency that matches our frequency, and to adjust our frequency back to the frequency of nature.
Mm.
And every week, I was instructed to focus on a certain group of people. The first week was warriors. The second week, we focused on, I think, all the builders, all the people, the great thinkers. The third week, if I'm not mistaken, was elders, the spiritual workers. The fourth week was, I don't remember 4, 5, and 6, and 7. But anyway, every week there was a certain group that we were focused on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that has to be done yearly. The first weekend in June is when it starts. And this will actually change, alter our frequency to match the frequency of nature itself. And that is how we will rise.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started the event, I actually had people calling me who had nothing to do with any type of traditional nothing. They didn't even listen to traditional African rhythms at all. But they called, and when they listened to that broadcast, there was one guy, he said he passed out. He started yelling and he passed out. He was having difficulties with like his back or his neck or something like that. Mm-hmm. And because of the frequency of the rhythms, he said he passed out and he came to like 30 minutes later and his ailments were gone. I had other people call and say that when they heard the rhythms, it's like they were being called home. It's like their entire internal vibration just began to change. And so I just want to say that the brother is definitely on to something. And yes, the frequency of music, that is why in everything that we do involves music. It involves rhythm. Half the time we can't even sit still for an hour we'll start tapping, our foot will start moving, something will happen to create a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the thing that actually, that gives us life. That's the thing that energizes us, that empowers us, is that. So
wow.
That's what I have to say about music and rhythm and vibration. All of those things make a difference. They're significant. And that is how we are being controlled today. That's how we're being controlled for the most part. Now, I want to comment on the second caller. Something he said that was key when he talked about that the tree that was in the village.
Yes.
From a traditional African perspective, there is not one thing in nature that is not living and that doesn't have consciousness. Everything from a rock to water to trees to plants to you name it. If it's in nature, it is living. It has consciousness. And our ancestors understood that. And it looked as though there was the worshiping of the tree. But the only thing they were doing is practicing one of the basic laws of nature, which is reciprocity. The tree gave them life. And in return, they gave whatever they gave to that tree. And so it was a beautiful exchange that took place for however long it took place until the tree was cut down. Even water has consciousness. Scientists are just discovering that water actually has memory. You can go on YouTube now and type up water and memory, and you'll see all these videos. And they prove that water actually has memory. Water remembers, it has consciousness. Even you can go and pick a stone. Stones, from a traditional perspective, are the keepers of history. And I challenge anyone to go and pick a stone. First ask, don't just go out in nature and just pick stuff because you want it. Because the stone may not want to be moved. And if you ask, I promise you, you will clearly hear yes or no. You state your intentions. And sleep with that stone next to you, under your pillow. And watch what you dream about. You will begin to see history. You'll begin to see all kinds of things. Because that history is contained in the rocks, it's contained in minerals. And so, we had a very comprehensive understanding of nature itself. That is why our ancestors and the people in that village, they actually gave to that tree because that tree gave to them. And nature is always an exchange. But we've unfortunately been trained not to exchange unless it's a personal exchange with us, because we always want something for giving.
Mm-hmm.
But nature is it's an exchange. It's no different than if you go to the store, you're going to give money in exchange for some goods. Nature operates the same way. There's absolutely no difference. When we do our prayers, and we may light candles and call our ancestors, we may give water, we give ash, cola nut. It's an exchange. I'm going to give you this for that. It's all an exchange. When we do rituals, a ritual is nothing but an exchange. Working with spirits is nothing but a partnership. You say, oh, I'll give you X for Y. And the spirit says yes or no. It's simple. If the spirit agrees, you get it. If not, in the moment, nah, it's not going to happen. It's all an exchange. But we've gotten away from the exchange because we've adopted the pure nature of people who don't believe in the exchange, for people who are selfish. And you can tell very clearly who actually has a viable relationship with nature, who has a viable understanding of nature, by how a collective group treats nature. To go out and just deforest an entire area, that's a taboo. But we don't understand that that's a taboo. That should never happen, ever. But people go out and they do it. But nature is actually fed up. I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna say this, and then we can move on. When I was in Ghana, my elders, they did a divination to find out what is this corona thing. Where does it come from? And they said the divination said very clearly, it has come from nature. Regardless of whether the original strand of corona was altered, it came from nature. And it is here to correct an injustice. And the injustice is centuries of abuse against nature. It is here to correct that. That is why it's here. And the people who have committed these atrocities against nature, they know that they're atrocities. They know what they're doing. And they have been warned by spirit to stop. And they have refused to stop. So now it's not karma, because we get karma kind of confused. It is only to correct a wrong. And in correcting that wrong, spirit does what it does to correct it. It doesn't look pretty. at all, but it's to correct it in order for it to stop happening or never happen again. That's why. Because they've been warned. And so that is why Corona is here. If you look at globally who's being impacted by it the most, who is it infecting the most? And according to world news, Africa was going to be the hardest hit, and it's the least impacted, period. So that's what I have to say about that piece. So we can go and I can talk about that all day.
Wow. Anyways, this is the second time on the Pan-African Daily TV that I'm speechless. On Friday with Reverend Philip Matthew Shock, when actually he also said exactly the things that you're saying here. And it's just but normal that we are so privileged in this time and point being here together to pave that way. The liberation that we've been asking, whether it's political, economic, spiritual, whatever. We've been talking about giving voices to women. We've been talking about all these agendas. No. Now we know where our strength is. We know where we need to start. It doesn't matter if we will have to go back. There is no other solution that will give us even financial freedom. You just talked about nature, and we're talking about the fact that look at just what group of people would even come up with an idea to create a pesticide that would destroy food, that would destroy the earth from the way people were farming, organically feeding themselves and were healthy. What kind of research and technology would calm people that were healthy and living accordingly, say, no, 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 your soils are not good. You need GMOs to modify your systems and everything. What kind of people, normal people, would think about? Just thinking about that effect of the destructions that they do to crops that people eat. Nature has every reason. I don't even know how much patience nature would have. So all what you are educating and just sharing with us here, it's so powerful. And we are privileged that our ancestors are giving us this knowledge at this point in time. And it is the time, like you said, this is what we need to know to be liberated. We want to thank you so very much, Elder. We want to thank you so very much. We thank our ancestors for just giving us this moment of truth, of who we are, because that's our freedom. We look forward to Saturday. I just want you to give a shout out and invite all your drummers to join us on this platform on Saturday. Of course, we'll be doing a webinar because it's going to start from 2 p.m. Europe time. That should be about 8 a.m. Eastern American time, and I think 9 p.m. Caribbean, and the others. And I even saw that West Papua, they're going to be, I think, at the time range of 10 p.m. Tonight. So we are connecting back to our ancestors, and we're reconciling the Africans on the continent and its diaspora to go back just to our way that we are, to the way of our ancestors. This is the beginning of the biggest change of our freedom. We can never use what was given to us to get freedom. We have tried for 400 plus years. It never worked. Let us try something else. Let's just even say, for benefit of doubt, we have done every sort of things. Africa is the most prayerful continent, the most forgiving and loving, like Reverend Philip said, yet they keep always beladen us with poverty, with wars, with sickness and everything that they package into. They always bring us, we're the dumbest people, we're the most primitive, we're the this, you can name that. It is time. Our liberation is here. And it depends on you, African. If you get this message, Chief Montana is going to be here with all the other speakers. We're going to have Professor Baina from the Haiti. You know her, the origin of knowledge of self. She's been here and she's been educated on the same principles that until we go back, we can waste the next decade, and our children are going to inherit it. Professor James Small is going to be there on Saturday. And exactly, he's been telling us exactly this point. Reverend Philip is going to be there. Kojo is going to be there. Bentil. We have, Richard Noel. We have Chief Montana right here, who's going to curate the global drumming together with Richard Noel. We have Raz Jani. We have a whole lot of speakers, all in this journey of our reconciliation to our ancestors. So much so that before we get into 2021, we are clean and safe. Death has no portion on your lives. Never. Fear is the one thing that our ancestors never had. They wouldn't have built the pyramid. Who taught us this? We are all vomiting back everything that they gave to us. We leave them back to their 2020 and everything that came with it. And we are relocating to who we are, because we know that we are creators and we're going to live and live and live. There is no fear in death. I want to thank you so much, Chief, for being here. It is so powerful. It is an honor just coming from there. And we're going to see you again on Saturday. A word out here for our audience to join us before we leave.
Yes. So first of all, thank you very much for creating this platform. It was just such a pleasure and such a joy to come and spend this last 2 hours, 3 hours, however long it's been, with you and all of the other participants and the other guests. So it's definitely been a pleasure. And you mentioned women having a voice. I just want to say something really quick. That is something that I'm a huge proponent of, because we don't understand how colonialism silenced our women. If you look in history, you can look at the Nubian archers, where men and women fought together side by side. If you watch a movie called Gladiators, when the main character is in the arena and you see these archers who come out, they're African and they're in these chariots. Those are our ancestors, and they're pointing at who they are. There's just not a lot of history on the Nubian archers, but that's who they are. And you read a book called the Homie Amazons. It talks about the role that women played within the Homie tradition, within that kingdom itself. They fought alongside men, and they were just as feared, if not more feared, than the men in regards to war. So definitely, like, we've allowed our women to be displaced, and they should be side by side with us, because the key is this: we both fell together. Men, the African man did not fall before the woman. The woman did not fall before the man. We fell together. And so the only way that we will succeed is if we rise together. And that is a choice that we have to make. It's a clear choice. So I just want to say, just thank you so much. I can't wait until Saturday. I'm really looking forward to Saturday, so we can continue this conversation. So thank you.
All right, I'm picking the last call. Someone is just really itchy to talk to you before you leave. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. Can Chief hear me?
He can, and he's already laughing.
Hey, brother. I know that voice. Nah, Aniwula.
Nah, Bamantana, Yambewula.
Alafe.
Dangma Zabewula.
Dagmaza Mali Alafe.
So Kambewula.
Sokum Mali Alafe.
Oh, Bamantana Ibera.
Gombeni.
I'm so happy to catch up with this program, and it increased my happiness for today. It is because all what you are talking about over there is exactly what the tradition says about we blacks. Then moreover, practicing African tradition, coming out with points like this actually make me happy, because you have touched bases at least all the ways that we live in accordance with tradition here, and it's on point. I can tell that most of the issues that you talk about tonight, all of it has, come to a point that I have understand that, yeah, you are really a leader who is ready to teach. And talking about reincarnation as you talk, my little contribution that I have to add into it, you see, reincarnation is something that we Africans respect and believe so much.
Mm-hmm.
It is the ancestors that has made it this way. And the reason why we believe and practice reincarnation is because, it is something that has to do with the ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were talking about death and so on, death is nature, it's also part of nature. And sometimes some of the ancestors that has, left these traditions for us,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them couldn't accomplish their mission on earth before they leave. So for the fact that nature is nature, some of them will decide to come back with their mission. And this is also the reason why when we give birth to our newly born babies, we have to go through divinations to really know if these children are reincarnated to either the ancestors from the maternal family or the ancestors from the paternal family,
Mm-hmm.
before we can choose a name for them.
Wow.
And by this, when a person is reincarnated, before they give the person a name, a special ritual and a special ceremony has to be done to welcome the ancestor before it's given to the person. So as the person grows, the ancestor that the child reincarnated, everyone in the family and everyone in the community knew how they were living, what they were doing and everything. So people don't become surprised when children are growing up behaving like old men or old women, because it's a spirit and it is like nature. And with regards to the issue of drumming and dancing, you see, drumming, singing, and dancing, it is very, very important in our African tradition. That is why when you are Chief Montana, you know what I'm talking about. That is why when you take our tradition, for instance, the Dabomba tradition, you will see that when a person dies as an elderly person, there would have to be drumming and dancing even before he is buried or she is buried. They do this because it is the drums that talks to us about our ancestors. It is the drums that talk to us about our history. It is the drums that also teaches us the tradition. So that's why here we have the oral historians who are also called the Lucy. These oral historians that I'm talking about, they are the drummers, and it passes from generation to generation. And they don't learn anything about the history from school. They are continuing it from generation upon generation. And it is also one thing that is very important in the African tradition. That is why when you come to the kingdom of Gabon, you will see that the warriors has their drums, the chief has their drums, women has their drums, the youth has their drums, and every person in that society has a way that they listen to the drums and practice with it and learn from it. So drumming and dancing is very, 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 very important to a stage that, look, we have a drum here that is called the tumpana. In Ashanti, they call it a tumpan. These tumpana drums that I'm talking about, when they play the drum, the sound of the drum can go over 20 miles. So even some elders who are here
And even people, not only elders, people who are here and can understand drums very well. When a person dies in the community, it is the drum that they would use to announce the death of the person. So anyone that is elsewhere, very far, as once they hear it and they hear the name of the person in the drum announcing that he's gone, everyone will come home. And at the same time, it is this drum to talk to us about the history of our ancestors, what our ancestors did, what they have left for us, how they have told us to live, and so on. So when you come here, we have the simple drum, which is a woman dance, and then we have the losi, have the sapashin losi, and so on. These are all kind of different types of drums. That has what it does, and you can't learn it at school. You can't learn it at school. Even when you want to learn it and you are not from the lineage, you have to pass through the original lineage to learn it. So our African tradition is so unique that it has programmed everything for us. Our healing, our healing, our lifestyles, everything in general about life, the African tradition has planned it for us. And it has been planned such that when you are following it and you take your time to learn it very well, end of your research or whichever way you are learning it, you will find out that there is nothing like it. Because there is no school that you can go and the teacher will just teach you everything 100%. But with the African tradition, when you are following it and you are practicing it, each and every day you are seeing things physical. And everything goes exactly the way you want it. So, and therefore, it is high time for us to go back to our roots, to take what we have, and to use it well. We are so blessed to have this kind of traditions. As Black people, we are so blessed to have this, and we are also so blessed that our ancestors come back to us, to continue to help us, and to also continue to make our societies a better place to live. So, Bamwantana, I thank you so much for time tonight, and my sister, I thank you so much for this special topic that you had tonight, and I encourage you, my sister, to keep bringing on people like Chief, so that to those who are our brothers and sisters, and they don't know what is going on, at least when we are doing this each and every time, people will start to come back to be who they are and to know who they are. Yeah, in Ashanti they call this Sankofa, go back and take.
Exactly, that's what we're doing on Saturday.
So
yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, we need to be.
Thank you very much.
Ami. You're welcome.
Thank you. Wow. That was powerful. What dialect was that?
It's Dagbonli.
Okay.
It's Dagbonli. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Thank you. That was powerful. Yeah, so we see ourselves on Saturday with you, the global drumming, and a lot more power to connect us back on the topic Sankofa. Sankofa, we're going to take it back, what belongs to us. So thank you very much, Chief Montana. And we see ourselves on Saturday, right?
Yes, definitely Saturday.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, you're welcome.
So, yes, dear family, thank you also. I mean, wow, for Tuesday, we have a viewership that is so powerful out here. More than 207 has been watching, sharing, and commenting on this show tonight. I think Every indication is proving us that that is where our power is. We are powerless because we've adopted other traditions that do not reflect us, and we begin to wonder why we are the way we are. Sankofa is inviting us. Our ancestors are telling us 12 of 12 on Saturday, come and take back what just belongs to you. Be it in your families, be it in your neighborhood, be it in your community. We have to reverse back. That 400 years of tears is gone. We know it all started with George Floyd. And he cried. And he cried and called mother, mother. And all of us started asking questions. What is the message? What is he telling us? What is nature telling us? What is Africa telling us? And now we're just seeing it as it unfolds every day. Even the speakers that we have here, it is not by choice. It is not by coincidence. It is just the work of our ancestors. So I want to thank you all. It's going to be a webinar session. I'm sure we're going to use another device, the StreamYard. All of you know that, because that could contain all of them, and we could share it to different platforms so you can join on, and it's easy to use. So our Be Live, we're going to be using it for a one-on-one conversation like this. And like I said, the whole week, we're going to be on this topic, Sankofa 2020, the platform where Africa meets its diaspora to go back to their roots. So thank you. You share it. We're going to post the image video right now, as we couldn't upload it. We don't know, whatever reason it was not loading. But tonight we're going to share it. Please, when you get the video, make sure you share it. Tomorrow we're going to get another guest exactly on this topic. As we said, this is the launching week to our Sankofa trip. Please invite one another to come and get their blessings, their ancestral blessings here, and start a new life by knowing who you are, know where you're going to, and get the power to break down all this toxic that we have inherited from generations to generation. 2020, we should not pass this pandemic, not COVID, to our upcoming generation. He said something, the last caller, I want to end up on that, on the need that the reincarnation is real. I'm just pleading on you, if with your permission, I want to share a video. It's so frightening, but I think it goes in touch. I haven't watched it. I just saw it. And this is a child, supposedly, most of you have seen it maybe on social media platform. Supposedly a child that has been put to birth in Douala. Douala is in Cameroon, the commercial capital of La République de Cameroon. And this child is actually an old man. If you look at this image, people, I don't know, like I said, with your permission, if you want us to understand and just see something, but I really don't know, but I can only warn you. I mean, like, it's even extended to the fact that this so-called born child, newborn child, has teeth on, not just gums of teeth. I mean, real teeth. Even some are even uprooted. And you look at his head and you look at his feet, they are so large. And it's a child that has just been born, is still in the maternal care. I mean, it is something is just not adding up. I mean, we know that science and all this will tell us, yeah, it's a gene mistake with teeth on, and a whole grown person, matured man, and you can see from his core, from his hands and his fingers, even his genitals, the penis is black, and you don't eat, it's unimaginable. And when I saw it, and I've been hearing about the stories, I like, wow. If you want that, we're going to share it tomorrow on this conversation of our ancestors and reincarnation. But if you don't, please just drop us a comment, and we might share it privately for those who said, yes, please, I want that, so we can share it in your private groups. But it's just another thing that is so mysterious at the end of this year, that we're going back to ancestors and we begin to see some things like this. It is a human, but with eyes and a head and teeth on, just born. still in the maternal care. Something is about to break free, and we are happy to be on this journey with you. Tune in tomorrow, same time, on the launching of Sankofa 2020, a possibility for us to reconcile our past and embrace our ancestors. Good night. Thank you for being here, and stay safe.